My name is João Maldonado. I've survived 2 assassination attempts in Costa Rica while I was there in exile. In the first attack, I was hit by 5 bullets. In the second, by 8.
For João and hundreds of thousands of exiled Nicaraguans, nowhere feels safe these days.
My family were Sandinistas from the early days. My father was a major in the army during the 1980s.
But once he entered politics, João's father discovered widespread corruption inside the Sandinista government.
He began calling out these abuses around 2009. That's when things started to change.
A few years later, his family started to be persecuted. It never ended. Today, João lives in hiding, in a country he's asked us not to name.
I'm speaking out because it's important. People need to understand that state terrorism is a reality in Nicaragua.
Nicaragua, the dictatorship the world forgot. Ruled by Daniel Ortega, once a hero of Nicaragua's 1979 Sandinista revolution, and his wife, Rosario Murillo, now officially his co-president.
El pueblo heroico y victorioso de nuestra Nicaragua, bendita, siempre sagrada y siempre libre.
At these rallies, Sandinista leaders wheel out a familiar theme, their arch-enemy, the United States.
Tenemos paz. Eso no significa que el enemigo descansa. El enemigo siempre está conspirando.
Inside Nicaragua, there are now hardly any political opponents, no activists, and no independent media. Foreign journalists are barred from entering the country. So we've traveled to neighboring Costa Rica to meet some of the hundreds of thousands of Nicaraguans who fled. Alicia and Miguel are journalists. They arrived here in 2022. The footage from inside Nicaragua is scarce. What emerges comes mainly from official channels.
July the 19th is the most important day of the year for Sandinista commemorations. It's the anniversary of the revolution.
When they lived in Nicaragua, Alicia and Miguel could cover these events. Now in exile, they can only watch from afar.
Everything is so tightly controlled now, seat by seat. You only get in if your name is on an approved list.
Alongside footage of official events, influencers have now also joined the scene.
Algo que es un hecho irrefutable. Si lo vas a hacer, es con la bendición del rey.
Despite the distance, journalists from the digital outlet Divergentes continue to keep the world informed about their country.
3 years ago, our whole team was still in Nicaragua. Now we're scattered across Costa Rica, Mexico, Spain, and the United States.
They use their network of sources to track how the regime is transforming into a dynasty. The couple's sons occupy key positions in the country, from media and business to security and culture. At the forefront is Laurence Ortega Murillo, widely seen as the heir apparent.
They control the narrative. Their children run several major media outlets. And when we try to expose anything, gathering evidence is incredibly difficult. Families tell us there are disappearances, but they insist it remains secret because they're frightened.
Even in exile, few Nicaraguans dare speak openly, and with good reason. In June 2025, Roberto Samcam was assassinated at his home in San Jose, the Costa Rican capital. A former Sandinista and high-ranking army officer, Samcam had been forced to flee. Widely regarded as a protector of exiles, his killing sent shockwaves throughout the community. This LGBT activist organizes gatherings for the Nicaraguan diaspora in Costa Rica. but now feels she must keep a low profile.
It was a major blow. Sam was a security expert. Everyone turned to him for advice. But for many of us, he was also a close friend. And it was more proof of what we already knew, that the Ortega Murillo dictatorship operates a network of surveillance and informants here.
Despite a damning recent United Nations report on the regime's human rights abuses, there's no sign of change.
It feels as though the world has simply accepted that Nicaragua is a dictatorship. Even though we tirelessly denounce what's happening, some countries still insist that dialogue is the way forward.
Today, more than 500,000 Nicaraguans live in Costa Rica. Their community events have become more discreet, but they're still bound together by nostalgia, food, and folklore.
We safeguard Nicaragua's cultural identity. I never imagined, it really never crossed my mind, that I would one day have to leave my homeland. But we dream, we hold on to the hope that one day we'll be able to return to our country.
Carlos Eddy fought alongside the Sandinistas during the Civil War in the 1980s. But in 2018, at the small radio station where he worked, everything fell to pieces.
I received threats from the police commissioner. He told me, "You're on the list of criminals we're going to lock up." That's what they called us.
Today, Eddy makes and sells jars of pickled vegetables. He hopes for better days ahead.
We watch the Ortega Murillo family line their pockets. We've become deeply disillusioned, especially from those we once trusted and saw as the torchbearers of a brighter future.
His 3 children are also in exile after taking part in the protests 7 years ago. 2018, a painful turning point for Nicaraguans. Peaceful protests against new laws were met with deadly force. We reported on the 3-month uprising that followed. Whole cities were taken over by demonstrators. A new generation convinced that change was finally within reach. But they were met with harsher repression than ever. Thousands were imprisoned and tortured. More than 300 people were killed. Hope for internal change died too.
I remember everything. The euphoria, the energy, but also the fear.
Ellison was 17 in 2018. He lived through that wave of rebellion, convinced he was witnessing the final days of an out-of-touch regime.
I remember we laughed because Ortega's portrait appeared on the first page of our philosophy textbook. We used to say, since when was he a philosopher?
He went on to study communications for 3 years until he learned he was about to be arrested. He then fled to Costa Rica, joining the roughly 20,000 Nicaraguan students forced to restart their studies from scratch.
The Nicaraguan government has erased our grades in our entire academic past. Any student who took part in the 2018 protests simply no longer exists in the official records. My mother called the university, and they told her I'd never studied there. But I spent years at that school, working hard to afford my education.
Universities were forced to obey the government's orders. Those that didn't have since been shut. A former government official still inside Nicaragua agreed to speak. He says that almost no one really supports the regime anymore, not even within its upper ranks.
Many officials have had family members killed, disappeared, or injured during the repression. They're only there because they need the paycheck.
A regime whose grip on power rests on the terror it can inflict.
I have to be extremely careful. and keep my distance from them. It's happened far too often here. Someone says a bit too much, and a few days later, their son is found dead on a street corner. The police don't investigate. The case is just closed.
In February 2025, 30,000 new so-called volunteer police officers, all wearing balaclavas, were sworn in. Many had been recruited under pressure. A paramilitary group in all but name. So who still genuinely supports this regime? Part of the answer may lie here, on the border between Nicaragua and Costa Rica. The two countries are divided by the San Juan River. On the Nicaraguan side lies the Indio Maíz Nature Reserve, one of Central America's most vital lungs. Now, a massive wave of deforestation is underway.
No one imagined they would authorize something like this in such an important environmental reserve.
A local Costa Rican looks on, helpless, as the nature reserve is stripped away.
It's only been 2 years since it began, since all these houses were built. They bring in whatever they have and they dig out whatever they can. They've come in search of gold.
Rich and unexploited, according to multiple sources, the land is carved up and handed out as political favors by the regime.
Every house had its flag.
The red and black one?
Yes, fixed to a bamboo post, the FSLN, the colors and initials of the Sandinista party. It's all illegal, but it's backed by their government.
Discredited, but accepted by the international community, the Ortega Murillo regime endures.
Nicaragua needs help. Nicaraguan youth need help. We want to return to our country.
Wherever there is a Nicaraguan embassy, political exiles are in real danger.
And as the international community looks on in silence, the crackdown continues. Behind a wall of media control, the ruling family is already shaping its succession. In 1979, Daniel Ortega helped topple a dynasty of dictators during the Sandinista revolution. For many Nicaraguans today, he's become what he once fought against.